Spring is upon us, and I have recently completed a project where I have my patio extended. If you can see it in the background, it is completely empty as of now. I did just buy a dining set that I have put together, and so even though I spent a ton of time outside, I didn't really have a space to really sit back and appreciate and enjoy all the blood, sweat, and tears that I have put in this garden. So this space is right outside of my kitchen area, and so my goal for this, obviously, to have a wonderful space for dining and entertaining, but I also wanted to feel colorful and vibrant with tons of flowers, but I also want to have a portion of it that I dedicate to edibles. So I'm thinking about creating a kitchen garden that has things that I would most likely grab while I am cooking. So things like herbs, certain vegetables. So today we, as in you and me, are going to venture out into the Texas sun, where even though it's March, our feels like temperature is well in the 90s, and we're going to visit some local nurseries to find some plants and flowers and edibles to fill my patio garden. So let's go. So yesterday we went and got all of our plants, and today we're gonna start potting things up. I also made a stop at Hobby Lobby, and that's where I got majority of the pots that I'm gonna put things in. Typically I would actually make my own potting mix, but over the past few weeks I've actually been hoarding those giant bags of soil that Costco has this time of year because they've been on sale for $7.99. And because the way things are priced right now, that's actually cheaper than me making my own potting mix. I'm going to amend it with some compost as well as vermiculite. The compost is going to add a ton of nutrients and just microbes and just all great things. And then the vermiculite is actually going to help with drainage and moisture retention, which becomes even more important, especially when you grow things in pots and especially when you live somewhere hot like I do. I cannot even with this weather right now, y'all. Like, literally, when we went out to the nursery, when I was clearly struggling in the heat, sweaty, not a good look for me, I am aware, there has been a 40+ degree swing. When we went to the nursery, the feels like temperature was in the 90s. We got into the high 80s in terms of actual temperature. It is in the low 40s today. Hence the reason for the jacket. We've had torrential rain over the past few days, tornado watches, and we have just had the most intense windstorms, which we're still having. So if you start to hear the wind, I am so sorry, but I wanted to get out here to continue to do my thing because Mother Nature is just going through it right now, as we all are. I wanted to provide some context to a few of the plants that I'm going to be planting for my patio garden. So when I'm planting things where I can, I try to stack functions and make sure that things have dual purpose wherever possible. It's not always the way it works out. Like, for example, some things that I'm planting is just for my viewing pleasure. But one might argue, well, a lot of the things that I plant for like just because they look pretty, also serves as a pollinator plant and a food source for various pollinator, and it also motivates me to come outside and get into the garden. One of the big, if you are anywhere in the South, really, mosquitoes. I feel like we have a different breed of mosquitoes down here in the South, especially in Texas. And so a lot of the things that I'm planting, while they won't 100% get rid of them, are known to repel mosquitoes. And so I am planting all the things. And so hopefully it does a very effective job at drastically reducing the amount of mosquitoes that we have. I am here next to my oregano plant, which has literally tripled in size since I showed it to you all in my last video about a week ago, which I will link below, where we harvested a bunch of things. I am actually going to be propagating some of my oregano as well as my thyme to plant in my patio garden, and I will show you how to do that. The quickest way to propagate your herbs is to carefully remove some by the roots. By removing it by the roots, it's going to skip the step in having to actually root them out, where you kind of put it in water and all that jazz. We're literally just going to stick this in some soil and be done. So you might be wondering, why might I be doing this? For one, I'm all about free. And a good thing about propagating is that you only have to buy the plant once and you can replicate it time after time after time, infinitely. The second reason is, by propagating it this way, you ensure that you're going to get the exact same genetics from plant to plant, as opposed to, let's say you grow something and you say the seed. If it turns out to be a hybrid of a plant, so meaning it has parentage across multiple plants, you don't really know what you're going to be getting. And so that's why propagation by taking cuttings is a great way to ensure that consistency from a genetic standpoint. Another reason is, by propagating things in my garden that are doing really well, they have not only become acclimated to my growing zone, but the microclimate within my garden. So now that we have our baby cuttings, we have essentially severed them from the mother plant and its primary source of getting nutrients and energy. And because of that, the babies here don't have the proper root development and energy to sustain the green growth that this plant had when it was connected to the mother plant. So essentially, this plant, I mean, it might do okay, but it's going to really struggle to really catch up. And so to help it along, I'm actually going to be cutting off majority of this green growth so the plant can really focus its energy on developing its root system, as opposed to just maintaining this green growth that the mother plant essentially gave it. And so I am not going to be shy here. I am cutting off the vast majority of the greens on this plant, and I'm just going to leave a tad bit, just enough for it to uptake some of the energy and photosynthesize from the sun rays, and really focus that on developing its fruits. This is essentially what I'm going to leave it with, and I probably could stand to take off more. But this will be good just to allow the plant the opportunity to really develop a strong root system, as opposed to really focusing on trying to uptake or try to maintain all that green growth. that certain plants like lavender, rosemary, virtually any succulent loves a planting media which can be described as sandy, loamy, and well draining, which means they don't really like to be planted in a growing media that holds on to too much water. It makes sense. You think about where these plants are native to. Succulents are native to desert areas. Things like rosemary and lavender are native to areas off the Mediterranean that has very sandy, rocky, and dry conditions. So they actually like to draw out a tad bit in between waterings. I mean, don't go overboard. They still need their water. And so because of that, I'm actually going to be amending my multi-purpose mix by adding a bit of sand and perlite. However, technically you can just add one or the other. I like to do both because sand, obviously, it's extremely well draining, but what I really like about sand is that it is inorganic, so it really mitigates the rate in which your planting media will erode over time as the organic matter breaks down. However, sand is really heavy, especially when you think about filling larger pots. And so I don't like to go too heavy on the sand just because of the weight component. On the other hand, perlite does a lot of the things that sand does. It helps to add drainage. It actually wicks moisture away. But what I like about perlite is it is a lot more lightweight than sand. However, perlite isn't as readily available as sand, especially if you're planting a lot of things. It's also quite a bit more expensive, and technically it's not a renewable resource, so it's not the best material to be using. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, which is why I like to do a mix of both to get the best of both worlds. But again, that's completely optional. You can just amend with sand or just amend with perlite and get similar effects. As of late, I have been on a roll with like manifesting things like in my life. So for this, for my garden, I mentioned that I really wanted to create like a kitchen garden, obviously with a ton of like containers and things like that. And so in my main garden, I actually use metal raised beds because the climate here is hot and humid, and wood just decomposes at a much more accelerated rate. And so I tend to not use so much wood. And so I was trying to figure out like, how am I actually going to create this garden? I was like, okay, maybe I'll just do it all in containers. Luck would have it that actually someone reached out to me from a local company that happens to be a brand that I'm very familiar with because they're the same company that I use in my actual garden, that of all the things that I like purchased with my own money. And so they reached out to me because they saw my video where I planted like my spring garden, and I mentioned how I was like doing my patio, garden and stuff. And they sent me a raised garden bed. So it's like, but it's on wheels. I didn't even know this existed. I've seen like the cedar ones, but I've never seen like the metal ones. And I was like, really? You want to send me something? And so they sent it to me. It's Vego. I never know how to say the name, right? I call it Vego. Sorry, Vego, if that's not how to say your name. But they send me this elevator raised bed. My mom is coming back over on Wednesday, and she has arthritis. She has some mobility issues. And so she isn't able to like do like gardening. Like her gardening is me coming over and doing the gardening. And so I'm curious to see how this works out and if she's able to use it without having any issues or pains. And if she is, I will likely buy some for her garden. So really excited. They sent me this one, which I will put together. They also sent me an irrigation system that goes with this. And they also sent me like a rollerized, that's not a word. A container that has wheels. It also has a trellis. So I'm gonna also put that together. But again, super stoked. They also gave me a discount code for you all to use. One is good, I think, towards the end of the month. I think it's a percentage off your purchase. which is April. And so if you purchase after April, there's a different discount code, and I'll include them both depending on when you see this video. But again, very grateful for this opportunity. And again, I had no idea how I was going to make this kitchen garden work, and it just worked out. So I feel incredibly thankful, incredibly blessed. So now that our raised bed is assembled, and assembly, by the way, was pretty straightforward. There's a QR code that has an instructional video, which was incredibly helpful. This took me about 90 minutes, maybe a little over. Already obsessed with these wheels. That is going to be a game changer. But I have a dilemma in terms of how I want to fill this, because it's kind of a container, it's a raised bed, but it's not in ground. And typically with my raised beds, I actually order from a local landscaping company and order my raised bed mix in bulk. And so their mix typically comprises of a sandy loamy topsoil, a little bit of humus, and compost. And typically I will amend it with a little bit of either coconut coir or peat moss, as well as some vermiculite. And I'm gonna make, I think, my version of that. I'm gonna add some topsoil, 1 part topsoil to be exact. And topsoil is good while it lacks the proper amount of nutrients to just plant in topsoil. It's incredibly rich in minerals. And a lot of the topsoil that I get is sandy, and sand is really good in being able to incorporate some level of inorganic matter, which we talked about earlier, which is going to help with, well, sand is going to help with drainage, and it's also going to mitigate the level of erosion that you have in your bed, and how much and how often you're going to have to replenish over time as the organic matter breaks down. It's also dirt cheap. Topsoil, a 40-pound bag, is between $2 and $3, so yes and yes. I'm also going to add 1 part of compost, which is full of all the goodness, the microbes and nutrients. And then I'm also going to add 1 part of either coconut coir or peat moss. I love incorporating coconut coir in my planting media because it really helps with aeration. Things like sand and compost can become compacted over time. And the coconut coir is going to help with aeration. It's also going to help with moisture retention. And then our last ingredient, which I'm going to add about 25% vermiculite, which is optional, by the way, because vermiculite can be a little pricey. And that's going to add some additional moisture retention as well as added drainage. But again, completely optional. You can create a perfectly suitable mix with just 1 part topsoil, compost, and either coconut coir or peat moss.
Good morning. Good morning. Hello, Ruben. Hello, Rich Ruben. Okay, Mama, you did it. You know what? I'm gonna ask you, how was this? I know you always talk about like how, you know, you can't bend down, so you always put me to work and make me do stuff out in the yard. But like, how was this? Did you feel like as you was doing it?
I felt good. Like I said, there wasn't any strain. As far as like, you know, bending over.
Yeah, it's a good height, I think.
It's a good height, very good height. I was able to plant everything with ease and everything.
And Arthur didn't come for you?
Arthur didn't come. Arthur stayed away.
Arthur is arthritis, for those of y'all that don't know.
It makes me want to become a gardener.
Oh gosh,
you know, like
one thing I do want to call out with this thing, like it is a really good height, but like the one watch out is like having to dump the stuff in. Like you still have to lift up the soil and things like that to put it in the bed.
And so I was able to do that, but I could see my mom struggling with like having to put like a 40-pound bag of soil in here. That's the only watch out, but overall, like I'm obsessed with this. I love, like it feels like really solid, like a
Yes,
tank
it does. It
construction.
does.
And I love that I can wheel this around, which is
Right,
gonna be really
mobile.
good.
It's
Like,
mobile.
yeah, when it's like hot, like triple degree weather, I can like move this over into some shade, which I really love. So
Yes.
overall, I am feeling this, but I'm gonna set up the irrigation that they sent me, and I will show you how that goes and how that works. Thank you, Mama.
So, you know, if I'm going to rate it a 1 out of a 10, I'll give it a 10.
Oh, okay. I wasn't expecting
That's
a 10.
it. I give it a 10.
This irrigation kit is definitely better suited for their standard raised bed as opposed to the elevated one. The construction is different, so assembly was a little wonky, but the functionality is still there. So I was looking for an inexpensive way to like display or store my plants. I just didn't want to have all the pots on the ground. And I had a bunch of cinder blocks from a previous project, and I came across this photo on Pinterest, and it gave me the idea to try to build my own sort of plant stand. And so I didn't like the look of just plain cinder blocks. So I actually just did a thin coat of like a whitish outdoor spray paint. So it still has sort of like a weathered look, which I like. I also had some random wood laying around from another previous project. So the only thing I had to buy for this was a spray paint. However, the wood was too wide to actually fit into the openings here. So I had to improvise. I just sort of grouped them together. The back are like vertical and then the front are horizontal just to kind of add a bit more stability. And then I just laid the wood on top until I can either sand it down so it can fit in the actual holes, or I can adhere it to the actual cinder blocks. But all in all, I think it turned out pretty good, all things considering. So I went and did an inventory of like everything we planted. We have literally planted over 30 things, closer to 40, between plants and herbs and veggies, and even some trees are relocated. And I am not even halfway done planting all the things I want to plant, but I have to remind myself it is a process. I don't have to get everything done all at once. Again, I am a party of one over here. Outside of the occasional visit for my mom, shout out to you, Mama. You came through as you always do. And also, shout out to my Aunt Betty, who was so excited about me starting my YouTube channel that she sent me the cutest care package that included all these like plant themed things. And this was one of them that says Plant Girl, this hat. Thank you, Aunt Betty. I know you are certainly watching. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And also, thank all of you. I hope this gave you some type of inspiration. Thank you, Ritz. You are just full of kisses today. Thank you. Thank you. I hope this gave you some ideas, some inspiration for your garden, whether you are in an apartment, on a balcony, if you have a patio, a yard, or even if you just have a windowsill. Get some things potted up. And if you haven't already, don't forget to check out my video where I planted up a year's worth of food for my spring planting. I'll link it below. This weekend, my garden has exploded in growth for when I posted my spring video like a couple of weeks ago. And I'm gonna actually do a video where I give you a garden tour and actually show you like what you do to maintain your garden once you plant things. Like, what do you do? I feel like that's a common kind of challenge that people face that are just starting off with gardening. So be on the lookout for that within the next week or so. But until then, y'all already know the deal. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And remember, every black thumb ripens to green, and it all just starts with a seed.